Okay, well, today is a fun 4-year tradition. Ask the Minister. It actually started 2019, believe it or not. I know, time has passed, everyone. Because we had a pandemic and then those years don't count, like we've all forgotten what happened, right? So it feels like 1 or 2 years, but it's actually been quite a few. So it started as when I was a licensed Unity teacher. I started as Ask the Licensed Unity Teacher, and it was inspired by my fellow Unity minister, Reverend Ogun Holder, because he used to do a twice a year Ask the Minister at his church. So I had 6 questions that were submitted that we're going to tackle today. So should we just dive right in? Let's do it. So here's the first question. Each one will be on a slide for you. So the first question was, Vanna's retiring, I hear. Okay, how to decide when the possibilities or options are overwhelming. So I'm taking this to mean I have a choice to make, but I'm overwhelmed with all of the options and I don't know what to do. So first I'm going to say, get out of your head, because you're letting your thinking get you in circles. Right? That's what we do, because we start thinking, well, I could do this, and then I can do this, and then I could, but what about this? But what about this? But what about this? And then we get ourselves in these circles of a loop that we can't get out of. And then I would say, okay, I'm talking from experience right now too, everyone, okay? Just so we're all clear. And then you feel overwhelmed, but you're not overwhelmed. Do you hear what I'm saying? This is what I've been working with a lot lately. I'm working with, I have the feeling, I am not the feeling. So I feel overwhelmed, but I am not overwhelmed. I'm not going to identify with, attach my whatever to it, right? What would I attach to that? I don't know. My fishing rod, my hook, thank you. I'm not going to attach my hook to it and let it carry me away, right? So I'm going to acknowledge I feel overwhelmed. Can you see how it's a step back, right? Now I'm not getting myself in that circle of this is what I am. And then meditate. This is where our meditation practice comes in. So whether it's a guided meditation, which I've really been getting back into Insight Timer a lot lately, or you know what, there's so many meditations, including ours on YouTube. Got to plug that. But you can go in and if it's overwhelm or I need to make a decision, you can put in a keyword and you can get a guided meditation for anything. Or if it's a mindfulness meditation with breath, well, you keep coming back to your breath and your mind's going to wander and you're going to just put a word to it. Past, future. Or maybe it's worry, concern. You're just going to notice. And then after the meditation, you can say, that's interesting. A lot of my concern was in the past or in the future. And then what do? Then we can journal. And a lot of times what's really great is if you journal with your non-dominant hand, because that gets you out of your thinking mind again, because we want to get out of that thinking loop, and journal with the opposite hand. A lot of times I've also gone on a walk, and before I start the walk, I'll start with this intention. Okay, I'm opening myself up to an answer. And I'm just going to know that I'm going to receive an answer, a sign, something during my walk. Now, that doesn't mean I'm looking now, right? No, now I've released that intention, and I'm going for my walk, and I'm feeling the sun and the breeze, and I'm looking at the beautiful flowers, and I'm knowing I'm going to receive. Same thing with a dream. Right before bedtime, I can say, okay, I'm opening myself to an answer in my dream, whether it's an image, a word, but I know I'm going to wake up with some kind of answer for myself. Something else when I have a decision to make that I've done a lot of times, in fact, I just did it again this week, is try it on. I call it the try it on. And this is what you do, because you have usually 2 choices. So I say, for 24 hours, I'm going to try choice X. And for the next 24 hours, I'm going to try choice Y. Not like I'm going to go pay the $500 if that's what it is, right? But I'm going to act as if this is my choice. So for that first 24 hours, I'm going to act, yep, this is what I'm doing. This is what I embody that choice. And then the next 24 hours, I'm going to embody this choice. And I don't tell anyone necessarily, except for maybe a partner or a close friend. Okay, for today, this is going to be my choice. I'll tell you, everyone, I usually don't get to the second 24 hours. Why? Because that's where our feelings, again, are just little information systems for us. As we start to embody it and act as if that's our choice, we're going to get the information real quick. Oh, no, I don't want to do that. Or, yeah, I'm going to keep doing that. I'm going to keep moving forward in that choice. So it's the try it on method. I highly recommend it. And then remember, in our metaphysics, we teach that you are Christ nature, divine nature. You're a divine idea. You have divine ideas. Our divine ideas, our ideas are our prosperity. That's what prosperity is. It's those ideas that we get and receive. No choice is a bad choice. All choices are information. There are no mistakes. You can't do it wrong. If you start to go down that path and it doesn't feel right, that's great information. Then you change. You adjust course. I think I shared with you at the beginning of this year with our son Julian, and I can share this because he said I could share it, where he came and he was like, conflicted. What do I do? And it came down to he was afraid of making a wrong choice. You can't make a wrong choice. All choices are information. So you journal, you talk it out, you meditate on it, you act as if, but your heart knows. Your higher power knows. That eyes behind the eyes consciousness knows. So you go in and you ask it. You might not like the answer. So that's the other part of this. How do I know what to do? I'm going to go in meditation. Here's my answer. I don't like that answer. Let me keep working it. Right? And so a lot of times we'll distract ourselves with feelings of overwhelm in order to avoid the answer we know we're getting. So stop and get quiet and move forward. Our fifth unity principle says, don't keep meditating and studying and asking and look. Get quiet and then move. You gotta move. There's a period of time where the studying has to stop and you gotta take action on it. Get quiet, know that you know, and move forward. You can't make a wrong decision. Okay. Are we all good with that one? Okay, moving on to number 2. Number 2, and the person who asked this isn't here today, but they can watch later. And I think it's a fantastic question. How do I shift my old belief and definition of God and prayer to my new unity understanding of prayer and God? Okay, so good. We're doing this with our prayer chaplains right now. Well, we've been doing it for a while. See, this word God, because in language, we all need a common word. Right? So an apple, we could sit around and say that red, round fruit from a tree that's this big. It's a lot of words, right? So we just say apple. And with God, what happens is it throws us usually, I'm going to say all the time, but it usually throws us out to someone or something outside of ourselves. It usually, when we say that word God, it usually throws us out to a parent God. A Superman God who's going to come save me. A Santa Claus God, please give me this. Right? That God that most of us grew up learning about. So I totally understand this, because even growing up in unity, it's the same thing. A lot of times, especially when you read some of those old Fillmore books, the languaging is old because the Fillmores, remember, are working from their religion of their childhood. So a lot of times you have traditional words with a whole new message, with a whole new thought. I am it. And then they'll throw in God out here or something, right? But I am it. It is here. I am an expression of the allness. So Charles Fillmore also used, for the word God, he would use principle, the capital P, divine mind, creative principle. Of course, he also wrote, we don't send prayers out there. Where would we send them? We don't send prayers out there. Where would we send them? So it's the language that limits us. There's so many words for God because God itself is so expansive. So for myself, what I've done is when I've just trained myself, whenever I see, read, hear the word God, for me, the word that embodies the God of my understanding is the word love. That may not resonate with you, but for me, it's love. So whenever I read, see, hear God, I just replace it with love. Or I may replace it with allness or allness of life or life force or infinite presence. Our prayer chaplain, Janie, just introduced me to a new one, eternal loving presence. I've been using that more lately. So whenever I see, hear, read God, I just replace it with a word that matches my understanding of God. So I wanted to share, and there's a lot of words, it's small, I know, but our prayer chaplains just brainstormed all the different words that could embody this idea of God. So that's the next slide. I'm going to do my Vanna for you. I mean, it's small, I know, but can you see? The point is, look at all the different words we can use for God. Light, eternal loving presence, love, divine love, wisdom, divine wisdom, compassion, flow, I am, the infinite, divine nature, the silence, the no matter whatness, beloved creator, divine oneness, creative principle, energy, all that is, universe, universal life energy, divine mind, spirit, principle, infinite spirit, life. So you can take the one for you that matches your consciousness. A lot of times say, this is oneness language. It's oneness consciousness. There's a difference. It's not about just changing a language. It's about changing our consciousness. And so as we come to unity and we start becoming, wow, this old God of my childhood doesn't match anymore. Well, now I can use a new word that matches it and that resonates with me in my new consciousness. So let's try this on. I do have an example. Very small. So sorry. Good thing Vanna doesn't have to make slides. Let's see. Okay, so here's from the June 7th Daily Word. As I work to make good things happen, I trust the goodness of God will be revealed at the right time and in the right way. So now we can change that with our oneness consciousness. As I work to make good things happen, I trust my inner divine wisdom will reveal my good to me at the right time and in the right way. Do you feel the difference? Yeah, when you're claiming who you are. Here's from Romans. We know that all things work together for good for those who love God, who are called according to his purpose. We can change that to we know that all things work together for good because we are love, our purpose. Or we know that all things work together for good because divine order is at work. Now, what's divine order? That sounds like I'm throwing it out there again, right? I order up my life with my thoughts, strong emotions, and actions, claiming that I order up my life as a divine expression of the allness. So, great question. And I invite all of us to try this. I always say try it for at least a month, where you choose a word or a few words, because you might find one word works at one situation, one another, or no, that doesn't quite. So try them on for you. And just as a side note, a great side note, when you meet with our prayer chaplains, afterwards we have our prayer chaplain available for you to pray. Or if you're one of our members, you get monthly prayer either through a call or email or a text. And you can ask them, request the word that you would like them to use for God. So if you say, you know what, for me, God is wisdom, or infinite presence. Our prayer chaplains can do that for you, okay? Just want to make sure you know that. Okay, next one, number 3. Oh, this is so good. We're getting some juicy soap opera-y stuff here. Charles and Myrtle Fillmore were married when? Who was Charles's second wife who also brought unity into being? Did anyone who knew that Charles had a second wife? A couple of you did. I didn't realize Charles had a second wife until I started taking teenagers to Unity Village in my early 40s. I grew up in Unity. I was like, what? How? It was like, when the parents get remarried. How dare he? So Charles and Myrtle Fillmore, of course, are co-founders in Unity. They were married in Texas in 1876. Now, Myrtle had gone a couple of years earlier to become a teacher because, of course, her health wasn't great in Missouri, so she moved to Texas where the weather was warmer and became a teacher and was teaching there. And then they met in a reading poetry group. Isn't this fun? So there was a group of them that would sit around and recite poetry or a reading, and Charles loved how Myrtle recited poetry or did her readings. And he said to his friends, something inside of him was saying, "There's your wife, Charles." Isn't that romantic? And so they started having these deep conversations, intellectual conversations together. They would go and they'd go on excavations of, I guess in Texas there was some place you could excavate bones and shells and whatnot, but they would go and do these things together. Well, then Myrtle was going to move back to Missouri, and he asked her, would it be okay if I corresponded with you? Wow. I mean, dating in the 1800s. So she said, yes, you can correspond with me. So they kept corresponding, and then in 1881, they were married in Clinton, Missouri on March 29th, 1881. Now, that night, they were on a train to Colorado. They moved to Colorado, Pueblo, Colorado, for the real estate business. And then they had 2 sons that were born there, Lowell Page Fillmore. Myrtle's maiden name is Page. So Lowell Page Fillmore in 1882. And then their second son, Waldo Rickert, in 1884, who went by Rickert or Rick. He's the one who designed the entire all of those beautiful buildings, Mediterranean buildings, and the fountains at Unity Village. Lowell also did a lot of poetry and writing for Unity. So then, a couple years later, real estate went bust in Colorado. It's 1884. They moved back to Kansas City, where real estate is booming. In 1920, skip ahead, they buy the land, which is Unity Farm, which turns into Unity Village. In 1925, the first house, the Arches, Rickard actually designed. Again, remember, for his mom. She said, it's my fairy house. She wrote to a friend, it's my fairy house. And Rickard built my ideal house without what, everybody? Without a kitchen. Best son ever. Because he knew she didn't actually like to cook. She didn't want to do it. So the second house for Grandma Fillmore had the kitchen. And that's where all the cooking got done. So also their third son was born, John Royal. He went by Royal. He was born in 1889. And then Myrtle dies in October of 1931. Now it gets juicy. December 1933, Charles marries Cora G. Dedrick. Now, she served him and Myrtle as their private secretary and had been the director of Silent Unity for a short time before that. I used to think, oh my gosh, he married the secretary? But guess what? I found this little bit, which I conveniently left out all these years before. And I was like, oh, I forgot I didn't see this little line here. She was actually hesitant to marry him because she didn't want to cause any problems in the family. But the family said, no, it's fine. It's okay. We accept you. they reassured her it was fine that she married him. And then they were married at Lowell Fillmore's house at Unity Village. She was actually an ordained minister. She was ordained in 1918. When they got married, he was 79, she was 57. What I want you to take away from that, though, is that you're never too old for love. And I don't know what it is about Charles, but the next day after getting married, they left for California on a speaking tour. And do you know the first place he spoke? The Shrine Auditorium in Los Angeles. Charles Fillmore spoke to 7,200 people. They had to turn people away. There wasn't enough room. They continued through California. They stopped at Unity of San Jose to help raise money there. They went to San Francisco, Unity of San Francisco. They then went back to Kansas City. But a few years later, Cora and Charles, they bought a house in the San Fernando Valley. And my friend Milena, that some of you know, did a little bit of research and tried to find it. And I think now it's an apartment building, like all things, right? But they would use that home here in the San Fernando Valley as their base for the winter months. So they would do their touring here in the winter months, and then in the summer they'd go to Kansas City where he would teach. So they were kind of back and forth on a tour from Kansas City, and his different tours. His last tour was in Florida, and they were staying at a little cottage house. And it had this big porch that they could sit on, and he just loved it. And by the end of the night, he had taken the measurements, made all the different directions, sent the plan to a builder in Lee Summit to have them already start on it. And they built this house on a piece of property that Cora owned that was right next to Unity Village, and that's actually where he and Cora spent the last 12 years of his life, was in this little cottage house. And they eventually had apartments put over the garage for young employees who weren't married and maybe couldn't afford, a house apartment for their own. So they had these little apartments built, but also because Charles loved having people around. He loved people to talk with and laugh with and pray with. So they had the little apartments built. He, of course, died at the age of 93, almost 94, in 1948. But here's the thing about Cora. Cora was a Unity author herself, but also Cora Fillmore is credited with compiling all of Charles's private papers that he used for his lectures, his personal notes, his letters, and she turned those into books for us. She also really helped start or grow the Unity archives. So all of our history and all of his works are because of Cora Fillmore. They did write a book together. They wrote the book Teach Us to Pray in 1941. It's actually our textbook for our prayer class. She always referred to him as Mr. Fillmore. She never wanted the spotlight. She only wanted to support her husband and his work. And she eventually died. Cora died in 1955. So it's an interesting story, isn't it? It's a fun story. Kind of like it. Very romantic. Okay. So for our next piece of history, more Unity history. So what is YOU? What is the connection to Unity's history? So I'm going to ask our new coordinator, Linz Florin, to come up, because Linz is the co-founder of the Unity Youth of Unity Alumni Network. Linz started attending Unity of Tulsa, Oklahoma, with his family at the age of 8. He moved to California, attended Unity of San Jose, and then Unity of Palo Alto, where he was active in that Youth of Unity. He served as a regional representative in the West Central region from 97 to 98. And then he was an international YOU president from 98 to 99. Guess what? Exactly 10 years after I served in that role. I realized that last night, Linz. So he's going to tell a little bit more about what is YOU, what's its history. They have a big goal that they're working on, and what is its connection and history with Unity. Come on up, Linz. Share with the people.
All right. Youth of Unity started, it was the youth group for Unity, and it started in about 1922, and the age range was about 12 to 25 back then. Youth hadn't coalesced into a teen kind of situation, but they, In 1936, they had the first conference at Unity Village of the youth group there. And over the years, it became, by the 50s and 60s, it became essentially just a teen group. So this is now, in our experience, it's the high school aged people. And coming up when we were in YOU, I mean, there was a couple decades where there were 500 people going to the summer events, and we have 7 different regions in Unity, and there were different regional events going on. So that's sort of what YOU is. But the connection to history is that the famous minister Eric Butterworth got his start. He was on the path to study music, and he went to the summer YOU conference, I believe 1938, and he changed the whole course of his life and decided to be a minister. And the dominoes from that are that Maya Angelou was in his church after he'd become a minister and did all of her great work after the time when she was influenced by him. He also influenced Oprah a lot, and so that we know that he had that his life was really transformed by Youth of Unity, and it changed all the people that he influenced. The one other thing, the peace song that we sing at the end of all of our services was first sung at a YOU conference. It was the conference in 1951, it was the first, they'd had a theme of world peace because of the Korean War, and they wanted to sing about peace, to create peace, and the youth brought it all home to the churches, and it eventually became canon, I would say.
Our ritual.
Yeah.
Our one ritual that we have in Unity.
And so,
wow.
The Youth of Unity program has been going on a long time, and where the Youth of Unity Alumni Network is working to kind of rebuild it. I mean, it was really impacted, obviously, by the pandemic and everything, and so I'm happy to talk. I can talk about this for hours. I'm not going to waste all of them here, but we're working really hard to kind of help create a virtual chapter so that youth who don't have connection to a church can still get connected to other spiritual youth together. So I can talk
But you
about
have
that
a big
forever.
goal. So what's the big goal?
The goal is to get 500 people to those events again. This year they're expecting 42. So we have a lot of work cut out for us, and we're working with people all around. We're working with Shad Groverland and everything. So the goal is to have 500 people by the 90th summer event, which is coming up in about 3 years. So 2026, trying to get the ramp up so that people, youth can experience each other in the spiritual way and in the big numbers that are truly transformative.
And so, Linz, one last thing, too. There wasn't, you know how you go to college and there's an alumni association, right? I know Michigan State and UCLA is always knocking at my email or door. But there wasn't an alumni association for YOU, for the Youth of Unity, and you started it.
Yeah, my friend Betsy and I started it about 10 years ago, and we were incredulous that there weren't a support system for all these youth. We think it's over 125,000 youth have gone through the program over time, and there wasn't a way to stay organized and connected. So we started with a Facebook group. We have about 2,200 people in that, and then we've built out an email list and to support, because it's such a loving, amazing environment, and then you graduate and it's like falling off a cliff. So we're trying to create the sort of cloud that can support the youth as they go into their lives.
Thank you, Linz. Isn't that awesome? And it really is because of YOU, Youth of Unity, that program, that I'm a minister today. Yeah. Because I went to our regional kids camp, and I said, I want to be like those teenagers. And I came back to my Sunday school teacher, and I said, I want to have a YOU at my church. And he said, let me look into it. And 2 weeks later, he said, hey, it's called YOU. We can start it. And so we started it, myself and Brian Gerber. And then it just took off. And I just knew by the time I was 16 that I wanted to be a Unity minister. But it's because of YOU. So powerful program that has a big part in our Unity history. So yay. And thank you, Linz, for that too. So, next question. Oh, it's a good one. What is a miracle? Does the universe really change the rules once in a while and defy the laws of science, or do we just use the word miracle when something nice happens unexpectedly? This is a great question. Interestingly enough, it was not in any of my study guides, because sometimes I go back to my study guides to say, well, what's the official word on something? It wasn't in my certified spiritual educator guide. It wasn't in my licensed unity teacher guide. It wasn't in my ministerial guide. No guide had any kind of definition of miracle. So I had to go searching it out. But we do have our revealing word, which has definitions put together by Charles Fillmore. And here's how he defines a miracle in that. He says, in reality, miracles are events that take place as the result of the operation of a higher known law. All true action is governed by law. Nothing just happens. All happenings are the result of cause and can be explained under the law of cause and effect. And then I saw this writing by Reverend Jim Lewis, who said that a miracle is just the action of principle through the consciousness of an individual or individuals, even if it's done without full awareness or consciousness of it. And he says usually miracles are happening during a time of great need. In other words, so we're looking for it, but also we have great faith and believe in it. So it's that expectation and looking for it, the faith, the focus, the emotion, the awareness is all there. So do you remember when we did our E squared and one of the assignments was to look for a green car? And then that week you saw a lot of green cars? Or last week I mentioned, how Christopher Cross and his music with that houseboat trip, and then that week I heard Christopher Cross 3 times. So it's that same thing, that where we put our focus, we start to see it. So here's what Charles Fillmore writes. It's on a slide, because he kind of tells it how it is. Superstitious people believe in miracles. Rationalists, in their minds, see cause and effect and find the law. Every one of them, meaning miracles, can be explained on the basis of action of mind. It is the mind that moves the body, moves the emotions, and when you understand basic principle, you can solve all problems and demonstrate so-called miracles. He said, you demonstrate according to your understanding and the power you have over your thoughts and the thoughts that are universal. Therefore, we must cooperate with the great source of life intelligence. So in other words, everything begins in the existence of mind, divine intelligence, principle, that infinite intelligence. And then we place our focus not on things, but on ideas, and we develop faith and trust. He says, you put away your fears and your doubts, you declare the truth, and you will find it. So Emily Cady, who of course is one of our first Unity teachers and authors, she writes in Lessons in Truth that the working of miracles is no greater than the power to discern spirits. Now here she's saying spirits a little higher up. She's saying spirits meaning God expressing in different manifestations. God expressing in all of Godness. So if we rewrite that, what she's saying is the working of miracles is no greater than our ability to see life manifested and expressing everywhere. The working of miracles is no greater than our ability to see wisdom manifested and expressing everywhere. The working of miracles is no greater than our ability to see love manifested and expressing everywhere. That's pretty powerful. Goes back to where are we going to put our focus? We can see miracles every day if we so choose. Okay, last question. I love this. What should I do? That's pretty open. Be still and know. Be still and know. Be that which you want to be. Be that which you want to experience. And again, don't think so hard. I'm speaking to my own self too, right here. Don't think so hard. Rest. Rest is a spiritual practice. again, we get ourselves really worked up. What should I do? Be still and know. Rest and know that that is a spiritual practice. And also, what should I do? Sometimes what we need to do is get spiritual support from a minister. Sometimes what we need to do is get emotional support from a therapist. Sometimes what we need to do is go to the doctor or a health professional for our physical health. Sometimes what we need to do is take the medicine. But get still, be still and know, because ultimately that's what it comes down to. Eckhart Tolle, the author, writes, "Beauty arises in the stillness of your presence." Beauty arises in the stillness of your presence. In other words, put down your thoughts, put down your worries, put down your overthinking, put down your problems, put it all down and be totally present and listen. Our intuition, which is our internal divine wisdom, which is connected to the allness, knows the answer. But see, again, we get wrapped up in what is the right answer or making sure we don't make the mistake. There are no mistakes, and you have the knowing within you. Get quiet, listen, and trust. Because it's with the faith in your own divine nature that you will know the miracle that you are. It is in the faith in your own divine nature that you'll know the expression of God goodness that you are. Yes? Mm-hmm. Be still and know. So thank you, everyone, for playing along once again with Ask the Minister. Have a fantastic week. Blessings.